Have you ever faced a problem so big it felt like a giant, unbreakable wall? A challenge that seemed impossible to overcome. Today, we're diving into an ancient story that's all about bringing down walls, not with cannons or brute force, but with something far more powerful: faith. This is the incredible story of the fall of Jericho. Picture this. The Israelites have just crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land, their first major obstacle. The city of Jericho. This wasn't just any city. Jericho was a fortress with massive, imposing walls that seemed impenetrable. The Bible tells us the city was tightly shut up. No one went out and no one came in. The people inside were terrified of the Israelites, and they had locked themselves down completely. From a human perspective, this was a military nightmare. How could they possibly breach these defenses? This is where things get interesting. The leader of Israel, Joshua, receives a message directly from God, but it's not a command to build siege towers or battering rams. Instead, God gives him one of the strangest battle plans in history. He tells Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men." Notice the past tense, have delivered. In God's eyes, the victory was already won. The only thing left was for the Israelites to walk it out. So, what was this bizarre plan? God instructed Joshua to have the entire army march around the city once a day for 6 straight days. Leading the procession were 7 priests, each carrying a trumpet made from a ram's horn, and right behind them was the most sacred object in all of Israel, the Ark of the Covenant, which represented God's very presence. The armed soldiers would march both in front of and behind this sacred procession. But there was a catch, a really significant one. Joshua commanded the people, "Do not shout, do not even let your voice be heard. Don't say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then you will shout." Imagine that. Thousands of soldiers marching in complete silence around an enemy city, day after day. The only sound was the steady tramp of feet and the continuous blast of the 7 trumpets. Can you put yourself in their shoes for a moment? Think about the discipline and obedience this required. It must have felt repetitive, maybe even a little foolish. Day 1, they march. Day 2, they march again. Day 3, 4, 5, 6... The walls are still standing. The people of Jericho are probably watching from the ramparts, mocking them, wondering what kind of strange ritual this is. It's a powerful lesson in patience and trusting the process, even when you don't see immediate results. They weren't relying on their own military strategy. They were simply obeying God's specific, unusual instructions. Their silence was an act of faith, a demonstration that they were waiting on God's timing, not their own. Then came the 7th day. This day was different. The instructions changed. On the 7th day, they weren't to march around the city just once. They were to march around it 7 times. Imagine the endurance required for that. 7 laps around a fortified city, with the priests still blowing the trumpets the entire time. The tension must have been building with every step, every circle completed. The anticipation in the air would have been electric. The people inside Jericho must have been utterly confused and probably terrified by this relentless, silent yet noisy spectacle. After they completed the 7th lap on the 7th day, the moment of truth arrived. Joshua gave the signal. As the priests let out a long, final blast on their trumpets, Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And at that moment, a million voices that had been held in for a week erupted in a single, earth-shattering roar. It was a shout of faith, a shout of obedience, a shout of victory declared before it was even seen. And what happened next is the climax of the story, the miracle that has echoed through millennia. The Bible says the wall fell down flat. It didn't just crumble in a few places. It collapsed completely, creating a ramp of rubble for the Israelite army to go straight into the city from every direction. The impenetrable barrier was gone in an instant. The very thing that was meant to keep them out became their pathway in. It was a stunning display of divine power, a clear sign that this victory belonged to God alone. Now, inside the city, there's another beautiful story of faith unfolding. Before the siege, Joshua had sent his spies into Jericho. They were hidden and protected by a woman named Rahab. She wasn't an Israelite, but she had heard about the God of Israel and what he had done for them. She put her faith in him, risking her own life to save the spies. In return, they promised her that she and her family would be spared when the city was taken. All she had to do was hang a scarlet cord from her window. So, as the Israelites stormed the city, Joshua gave a strict order to save Rahab and everyone in her house. Amidst the chaos of a city falling, 2 men went directly to her home, identified by that scarlet cord, and brought her and her entire family out to safety. Her act of faith saved her. It's a powerful reminder that God's grace is for anyone who turns to him, regardless of their past or background. Following God's command, the Israelites dedicated the entire city to God. Everything in it was considered a devoted offering. They burned the city, and the precious metals like gold, silver, bronze, and iron were set aside for the Lord's treasury. This act of complete destruction wasn't about plunder. It was an act of total obedience, showing that they weren't fighting for their own gain, but for God's glory. After this incredible event, the news spread like wildfire. The Bible says the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. This victory established Joshua's leadership and, more importantly, demonstrated the power of the God he served. The surrounding nations heard what happened at Jericho and were filled with fear, understanding that they were not just fighting against an army, but against God himself. So, what's the big takeaway from this incredible story for us today? The moral lesson is crystal clear. True victory comes through faith and obedience, not through our own strength or cleverness. The Israelites didn't have a single weapon that could touch those walls. Their strategy was, by all human standards, ridiculous. But they obeyed. They trusted God even when his plan seemed strange. And that's the challenge for us. What are the walls of Jericho in your life? Maybe it's a financial struggle that seems insurmountable, a broken relationship that feels impossible to mend, a habit you can't seem to break, or a dream that feels too far out of reach. The story of Jericho teaches us that when we face these walls, our first step shouldn't be to strategize in our own strength. It should be to listen for God's instructions. Sometimes his instructions might seem unusual, just like marching in silence. It might be to forgive someone who doesn't deserve it, to give generously when your own resources are tight, to take a step of faith into the unknown, or to simply be patient and wait on his timing. It requires us to lay down our pride, our logic, and our own plans, and to simply trust that his way is better. When we obey, even when it doesn't make sense, we position ourselves to see his power at work. He is the one who brings the walls down. Our job is to walk in faith, to keep marching, and to be ready to shout for the victory that he has already secured for us. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this powerful story. I hope it encouraged you. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe for more content that dives into the timeless wisdom of these stories. We'll see you in the next video.